This is not just a list of forgotten faces, it is a crime scene investigation. Okay, maybe not a crime scene, but definitely a mystery. Why did Homer's brother vanish after saving his life? Why did the most famous teacher in school history just stop showing up? The show tries to move on, but the fans remember. We're digging into the deleted files of Springfield to find out who was cut, who was eliminated, and who was simply left behind in the writer's room trash can. Edna Crabapple was more than just a teacher. She was the exhausted soul of the entire school system, but her sudden disappearance left a hole in the classroom that no substitute could ever fill. Edna was Bart's chain-smoking, wine-drinking, perpetually tired teacher who represented every burnt-out educator who has ever looked at a classroom full of kids and thought, I could have been a marine biologist. She had this perfectly defeated energy that made her feel more real than half the actual teachers you probably had growing up, complete with her signature mocking, ha! Laugh, and a backstory showing she started out hopeful and happy before years of frustration turned her sour. The woman was married to Ned Flanders in one of the show's genuinely sweet storylines starting in season 23, which is wild because she went from dating random losers to landing the nicest guy in Springfield. She was basically the anti-Mrs. Doubtfire, sarcastic, honest about hating her job, and absolutely done with everyone's nonsense. Her character was quietly retired after voice actress Marcia Wallace passed away from pneumonia-related complications on October 25, 2013. The show handled it with actual class for once. They dedicated the season 25 episode, The Man Who Grew Too Much, to her, showed Ned grieving in later episodes, and didn't try to replace her or pretend she never existed. No dramatic final scene was ever shown on camera. Her passing is implied off-screen out of respect. There was no desperate cash grab storyline, just respect. The chalkboard gag in one tribute episode simply said, "We really miss you, Mrs. K." And honestly, that hit harder than any big send-off could've. The show even used old recordings of Wallace's voice for the final emotional nod in season 32, where Bart finds her old diary and learns how much she believed in him. Sometimes the show remembers it has a heart, but the silence in that classroom is still deafening. Herb Powell had the money, the power, and the bloodline, but the show treated him like a bad memory instead of the family member he actually was. Herb is Homer's secret half-brother who might be the biggest missed chance in the entire series. This guy was voiced by Danny DeVito, showed up twice in the early seasons, and then basically vanished into the void like he owed the show money. He started as this rich car manufacturer who let Homer design a car which predictably resulted in the ugliest vehicle ever created, the Homer, and Herb losing his entire fortune. The Homer was a car so bad it made the Pontiac Aztek look like a Ferrari. Herb went from millionaire to homeless faster than you can say cartoon logic. Then he came back in season 3, where he invented a baby translator, got rich again, and forgave Homer in what should have been a repeating storyline. Instead, he disappeared for literal decades. The show just forgot they had Danny DeVito on speed dial playing Homer's brother, which is like owning a Ferrari and using it to store boxes in your garage. He popped up for a quick phone call in season 24, and then surprisingly returned again in the season 36 premiere, which is the show's way of saying, remember this guy, without actually committing to doing anything interesting with him. It makes you wonder if the writers just hate the idea of Homer having a successful relative, or if Danny DeVito is just too expensive to bring back for a family barbecue. Apu Nahasa Pima Petalon, I think I said that right, went from being the heartbeat of the neighborhood to a ghost that everyone is too afraid to talk about. This is the most controversial deletion in the show's history, and boy, did this situation get messy. The Quickie Mart owner went from beloved supporting character to cultural lightning rod faster than you can say his catchphrase. The guy ran a convenience store, had 8 kids, survived multiple robberies, and was genuinely one of the show's most developed side characters. He had a PhD in computer science, a rich backstory including citizenship struggles, an arranged marriage in Manjula, and more depth than half the main cast. Apu was not just the Indian guy, he was a fully realized character who happened to be Indian. Then the 2017 documentary The Problem with Apu came out, highlighting how the character had real-world harm. Hank Azaria, who voiced him, stepped away from the role in 2020 after deep thinking, saying the backlash made him realize the impact. The show basically put him in witness protection. No explanation, no send-off, just silent erasure. He is technically still alive in Springfield, appearing in the background, but he has not had new lines in years. It's like the show is too scared to address it properly and too stubborn to retire him officially. The whole situation is peak modern Simpsons, a problem they created decades ago that they have absolutely no idea how to fix now. They could have recast him, given him a proper change, or retired him with dignity. Instead, they chose option 4, pretend really hard that nobody notices he's gone. Mona Simpson spent her life running from the law, but her biggest crime was stealing our hearts every time she abandoned Homer. Mona is Homer's hippie activist mother who kept passing away and coming back more times than a horror movie villain. She abandoned Homer as a kid because she was on the run from Mr. Burns after sabotaging his germ warfare lab. Her episodes were always these emotional gut punches where you would see why Homer is the way he is, and then she would disappear again, leaving him with fresh abandonment issues. The show would bring her back every few seasons just to mess with Homer's therapy progress. She passed away for real in season 19, and it was legitimately heartbreaking. Homer spending the night on the hood of his car looking at the stars she wanted to see. Her final act was a rebellious plan involving her ashes that went sideways, but the grief felt raw. Even though she is gone, her shadow hangs over the show. Every time Homer does something impulsive or kind-hearted, you see a little bit of Mona in him. She represents the tragic backstory that grounds the goofiness of the show. She wasn't just deleted, she was the emotional anchor that the show cut loose, leaving Homer drifting alone in the ocean of his own stupidity. Lionel Hutz and Troy McClure were the dynamic duo of incompetence and vanity, but when the laughter stopped, the show made the respectful choice to never let anyone take their place. Lionel Hutz was Springfield's most incompetent lawyer, a man who made ambulance chasers look like Supreme Court justices. He worked on a no money down basis, except his business card had a printing error. This guy represented himself with a briefcase full of shredded newspaper, changed his name to Miguel Sanchez when things got dicey, and once showed up to court in a suit made entirely of other people's subpoenas. He was the legal system's biggest joke, but Phil Hartman's voice work made him absolutely magnetic. Then you have Troy McClure, the washed-up actor who's hosted every educational film, infomercial, and desperate comeback special in Springfield. Hi, I'm Troy McClure. You may remember me from such films as... became one of the show's most iconic running jokes. The guy had a bizarre fish obsession that the show kept hinting at, married Selma for publicity, and was basically a walking parody of every sleazy actor desperately clinging to fame. He was the entertainment industry's warning sign with perfect hair. When Phil Hartman was tragically taken from us in 1998, the show immediately and permanently retired both Lionel Hutz and Troy McClure out of respect. No recasting, no explanation episodes, just gone. It is one of the few times the show has handled a deletion with zero controversy. They realized that nobody could replicate what Hartman did, so they just closed the book. It left a void in Springfield that 25 years later still hasn't been filled. Maud Flanders lived in a life of piety and virtue, only to be taken out by a promotional item in the most ridiculous moment in television history. Maud was Ned's wife who met her end in the most absurd way possible, knocked off a stadium railing by a barrage of t-shirts during a race car event in season 11. She went from devoted Christian wife to cartoon casualty because of a pay dispute with voice actress Maggie Roswell. The show could not afford to keep paying Roswell to fly from Denver to LA for recording sessions, so they just eliminated her character instead of negotiating properly. It is the pettiest character removal in television history. Imagine getting fired from your job and your boss responds by literally ending your character with promotional merchandise. Her loss actually had lasting consequences though, which is rare for the show. Ned became a widower, the kids lost their mom, and the whole dynamic of the Flanders family changed permanently. It was not just a throwaway moment. It fundamentally altered one of the main supporting characters. Maggie Roswell eventually came back to voice other characters, which makes the whole situation even more ridiculous. They took Maude out over the money, then just hired Roswell again. Anyway, that is peak Simpsons decision making right there. It serves as a reminder that in Springfield, you're only safe as long as your contract is signed. Colin arrived with an accent and a guitar, stole Lisa's heart for 90 minutes, and then vanished as if the entire movie was a fever dream. Calling him a deleted character is generous because he barely qualified as a character to begin with. He was Lisa's temporary boyfriend with an Irish accent, environmental activism, and absolutely zero personality beyond vaguely charming teen. The movie needed Lisa to have a romantic interest for exactly 3 scenes, so they created the blandest possible love interest and then immediately forgot he existed. Colin didn't get deleted so much as he simply stopped being relevant the second the movie ended. The character had less development than most Simpsons background characters. He is the definition of a plot device. He exists only to move the story forward and then is discarded like a used napkin. Fans sometimes ask whatever happened to Colin, and the answer is simple. Nothing. He wasn't real. He was a cardboard cutout with a voice, and once the credits rolled, he went into the recycling bin of history. Cecil Terwilliger proved that insanity runs in the family, but apparently there is only room for one maniac with crazy hair in this town. Cecil is Sideshow Bob's brother, which means he is also a brilliant schemer with a vendetta. He framed Bob for a crime he didn't commit and tried to blow up a dam in season 8. David Hyde Pierce voiced him in that one episode, which was the perfect reunion since he played the brother of the actor who voices Sideshow Bob on another famous show. It doubled as a mystery plot and worked way better than it had any right to. Cecil represented the idea that Bob might not be the most dangerous Terwilliger, which should have been explored more. Instead, he showed up once, got arrested, and then the show forgot he existed while continuing to bring Bob back every other season. It is a shame because the dynamic between the two brothers was electric. They were like a sophisticated evil comedy duo. But I guess the writers figured one highbrow criminal was enough for Springfield. Cecil sits in a cell somewhere, plotting a revenge that will never make it to air, a deleted file in the grand database of villains. Rabbi Hyman Krostofsky was the only real man who could make Krusty the Clown stop laughing, and his final exit was a rare moment of genuine reality. The rabbi was Krusty's father, and he actually got a proper final episode in season 26 after appearing occasionally since season 3. The character was a serious religious man who disapproved of his son's comedy career, creating this generational conflict that gave Krusty unexpected depth. His final episode was voiced by a replacement actor since the original legend, Jackie Mason, had retired and later passed on. The show gave him a funeral, Krusty dealt with the grief, and it was handled with the kind of care the show usually reserves for its more important characters. Rabbi Krostofsky wasn't deleted out of controversy or convenience. He left because this is what happens to elderly characters eventually. It is one of the more natural character exits the show has done, which is refreshing compared to the t-shirt cannon accident or Silent Erasers. It grounded the show in a way that few other storylines do, reminding us that even clowns have to say goodbye to their parents eventually. Graggle Simpson is the character who proves that if you lie to the internet long enough, the internet will start to believe it. Graggle is the most hilarious entry on this list because he never existed in the first place. He is an internet hoax, a collective delusion that convinced people that there was a weird Simpson family member they all forgot somehow. Often depicted as a green, strange figure or a weird matte self-insert, people created fake screenshots, false memories, and elaborate backstories for a character who was never in a single episode. Graggle represents the internet's ability to gaslight itself into believing anything if enough people commit to the bit. This is what happens when a show runs for 35 seasons. People's memories get fuzzy enough that they will believe there was a purple Simpson they forgot about. He is a deleted character who was never there to delete. He is a ghost of a memory that never happened, a glitch in the matrix of fandom. And yet, if you look hard enough at the background of those early episodes, you almost start to see him. Almost. Hank Scorpio was the best boss Homer ever had, and his reward for being perfect was to be exiled from the show forever. He's arguably the best one-episode character in the entire series. This supervillain hired Homer, treated his employees amazingly well, and casually conquered the East Coast while being the world's most supported boss. Albert Brooks voiced him with this wild energy that made Scorpio feel both genuinely threatening and weirdly likable. He gave Homer the Denver Broncos as a parting gift, which is somehow both the most generous and most useless thing anyone has ever done for him. The show keeps trying to recreate the magic of that episode with new villain characters, but they never measure up because Hank Scorpio was lightning in a bottle. He got minor cameos in later episodes, but no full return. Fans still beg for more, but maybe it's better this way. If he came back, they might ruin him. He remains the perfect deleted character. A man who walked in, was awesome, and left before he could become annoying. He's the one that got away. The boss we all wish we had, even if he was a terrorist. Lucille Botskowski was the original nightmare of the Simpson children. A villain so scary she was scrubbed from the records. Lucille, also known as the Babysitter Bandit, appeared in the very first produced episode with actual continuity. She robbed the Simpson house while babysitting, tied up the kids, and then escaped justice in a way the show has never resolved. She has been on the run from Springfield police for 35 years, which honestly tracks for their competence level. She was voiced by Penny Marshall in what might be the darkest season 1 moment, a seemingly sweet babysitter revealed as a violent criminal. The episode ended with her escaping in a getaway car, and the show just never followed up because early Simpsons was not concerned with continuity. After Penny Marshall passed away in 2018, any chance of bringing the character back for closure vanished. Lucille remains Springfield's most successful criminal purely by virtue of the show forgetting she exists. She's out there somewhere, probably robbing another cartoon family, safe in the knowledge that the writers have no idea who she is anymore. Frank Grimes forced the show to look in the mirror, and the reflection was so ugly they had to get rid of him immediately. Frank Grimes, or Grimy as he liked to be called, is the character who exposed how insane Homer's life actually is. This guy worked hard his entire life, achieved nothing, and then watched Homer Simpson bumble into success repeatedly while being a complete idiot. It broke his brain so thoroughly that he had an unfortunate electrical mishap while trying to mock Homer's incompetence in Season 8. The entire episode is the show admitting that Homer should not have the life he has. Grimes was a reality check, the normal person who walked into Springfield and couldn't process the cartoon logic that rules everything. He saw Homer's life and he had a complete breakdown. His end was genuinely dark. He passed on while everyone at the funeral laughed because Homer was sleeping and said something dumb. The show literally eliminated a character to prove a point about how Homer lives in a consequence-free reality that would destroy any actual human being. Grimes had to go because he was too real for Springfield. Fat Tony ran the streets of Springfield for decades, but the man you see today is actually an imposter wearing his cousin's skin. Fat Tony was Springfield's mafia boss who got replaced by his cousin, Fit Tony, after passing away from a heart attack in season 22. The show ended their Godfather parody character, brought in his cousin who was healthy and trim, then immediately had Fit Tony become Fat Tony because that is apparently how mob boss succession works. The character was inspired by every Italian mob movie ever made, ran the Springfield Mafia with appropriate menace and humor, and was eventually given a real end instead of just fading away. He collapsed during an FBI raid, which is honestly more dignified than most character exits. His replacement, Fit Tony, gaining weight and becoming Fat Tony 2.0 is either brilliant commentary on how crime corrupts people, or the show admitting they didn't want to change the dynamic. Either way, the original Fat Tony is deleted, and his cousin is living a lie, pretending to be a man who died years ago. It is a secret identity twist that nobody in the town ever talks about. So, who's next? With 35 seasons and counting, the list of deleted characters is only going to grow. Is there a character you missed that we didn't mention? Or do you have a wild theory about where Herb Powell has been hiding this whole time? Drop a comment below with your thoughts, hit that like button if you learned something new, and subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into the mysteries of animation. Thanks for watching.